mid-generation refresh. People are talking about the PlayStation 5 and a new version coming out in 2023, 2024. Even an Xbox Series S and X new version being talked about. And the focal point, once again, is resolution. Now, I think that this is a race to the bottom because when it comes to resolution, it really doesn't change the game. So you're not getting higher polygon counts with characters. So for instance, going from a PS1 character model of Lara Croft to a PS2 character model, the polygon count is much higher. You're getting more detail in the character, not necessarily resolution. So if you took, say, an early PS1 game like Tomb Raider and made it 4K, would it look better? Sure. Would the textures be better? Would the polygon count be higher? No. Could you do more in terms of developing the levels and making them bigger because you have more RAM? No. So things like that are more important to me moving from one generation to the next than resolution. It is important, but once we hit the HD era, I think once we start to get to 4K and then 8K, it becomes a little bit of a diminished return. So before I made this video, I did a little bit of research into the human eye. Believe it or not, somebody making a video on YouTube doing some research. Don't worry, I'm not testing a heatsink. This information comes from LASIK MD. I'm going to link it in the description below. Please read it. It's very informative. It says, it's important to understand that there's a difference between pixels and resolution. When looking at HD, 4K, and now 8K TVs, the higher you go, the higher the resolution or total number of pixels. Pixels are the individual point of light that make up a digital picture. For example, an 8K TV has 33,177,600 pixels. To note, the term 8K refers to the number of pixels, about 8,000 displayed horizontally per line. However, in human vision, eyes do not contain pixels. The closest comparison would be the rods and cones in your eyes that help you see. What's more, what you resolve is the picture you are able to put together with your eyes and brain, not what's necessarily existing in reality. Think about that one for a minute. Since the human eye doesn't see in pixels at all, it's pretty hard to compare them to a digital display, but curious minds want to know. If you could compare the two, how many pixels would the human eye likely have? It turns out, someone smart used some pretty complex math, and assuming 20/20 vision got to 576 megapixels. 576 megapixels is roughly 576 million individual pixels. So at first glance, it would seem that we could see way more than an 8K TV has to offer, but it's not that simple. For instance, we see in 576 megapixel definition when our eyes are moving, but a single glance would only be about 5 to 15 megapixels. So if you're wondering if your potentially extreme high definition 576 megapixel eyes can see more than an 8K TV has to offer, consider this experiment. Think of when you were at the beach. If you look down at the sand closest to you, you can easily count the individual grains, right? But the farther away you look, the more difficult or impossible it becomes. That's because distance plays a huge role in our resolution. So in theory, at some distances, it is possible to see in 8K. If you want to get a broad idea of what that distance might be, you can use Carlton Bale's home theater calculator, and that is in the description below as well in the article. So for a 50-inch 8K TV, you would need to sit 2 feet or less away from it in order to appreciate its full impact. Think about that for a second. You purchase a 50-inch 8K television, you have to sit 2 feet or less away from it for your eyes to be able to discern those pixels, even if you have 20/20 vision. Now, factor in the fact some people are nearsighted, some people are farsighted, some people have all kinds of problems. If you have 20/20 vision, you have to be 2 feet or less away from that screen. Who sits 2 feet or less away from a television screen when they're playing video games, when they're doing anything? I found this interesting. I know all of this is being driven by marketing, and if you want the best television or the best anything, you certainly can go out and buy that. But it doesn't mean that you can take advantage of it. And I found that to be incredibly interesting. Myself, I would rather see an evolution in graphics. I would rather see RAM leading to higher polygon counts in characters. And yes, of course, there are post-processing effects, and there are a lot of subtle little things that go on in games besides resolution, and resolution is important. But I think we're at the point now of diminishing returns. Really, if you're just buying a television to say it's 8K and you really cannot discern that difference unless you're 2 feet away or less, what is the point? I would rather them use the extra power to create new worlds, larger worlds, more intricate AI, smarter enemies, more choices, and yes, higher polygon counts. Use that RAM, make those textures look great. So a great example of this would be, and I use this myself, I've always purchased consoles moving from one generation to the next for differences in graphics, not necessarily resolution. We moved into the HD era, that was great, but things really haven't changed in terms of how games are created, how they're designed. And I think that that's more important to me than resolution. Certainly, I don't want to go back to the days when HD wasn't an issue, wasn't a thing. Clearly, we needed that. But I do think 4K and now 8K, to highlight a system and sell it based on resolution doesn't make much sense to me. Take the Xbox One X, the world's most powerful console. It had more RAM in the box than the Xbox One S, but they didn't do much with that RAM, because if they created a game with a character in a world that had more polygons than were capable of being put on the Xbox One S because it has less RAM, nobody would like that. So what they did was they just highlighted differences in resolution and frame rate. And again, it's not that big a deal when we're in the HD era. 4K is really good enough. 8K, I'm just not too sure about it. I'd rather see these systems do something different than constantly push resolution and frame rate. Are you interested in 8K? Are you going to run out and buy an 8K television as soon as the price comes down? Are you interested in mid-generation refreshes again? Are you interested in a PS5 Pro that does nothing but give you the PS5 games in 8K? Would you be interested in an Xbox Series X Pro that gives you nothing but the Xbox Series games in 8K? No differences, no evolution, no polygon counts that are higher, no bigger worlds than what we're going to get this generation. For me, resolution clearly is not a selling point. I never thought that it was. It is important, but again, we've seemed to have pushed this idea of resolution and teraflops and things that really don't matter holistically to the experience of console gaming. It's all about the games and what developers can do to make the games bigger and better. And bigger and better isn't just resolution. It's graphics, it's AI, it's worlds, it's characters. There's a lot more that can be done than just taking what you can create this generation and making it a higher resolution. That's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the video. Think about sharing it out on your favorite social media platform of choice, maybe subscribing to the channel. At the very least, hitting the like button, it would help me grow the channel immensely, and I'll see you in the next video.